Marian Lockett Egan became a part of the Philadelphia scene in 1964. She grew up on a Kentucky farm, graduated high school in a class of 17. A stay-at-home mom, she excelled in sewing, cooking, and managing money. Divorced at the age of 30, she became a working mother, starting her 50-year career in local radio. Marriage brought Marian to Philadelphia and a position with Triangle Broadcasting. In 1966, Marian moved back to the agency world and advanced from broadcast buyer to associate media director during her 6 years there. As buyer for Tasty Baking, she negotiated the Flyers contract and initiated the hat trick. It was during this time that Marian became active in the Television Radio Advertising Club, becoming the first female president in 1973. The next move was to Scott Paper, where she served as advertising media manager for 12 years, working across all media. Marian's career spanned the days when women in business were not given the recognition they are today. Major companies were showcasing female executives. Marian became a spokesperson for Scott, appearing on TV shows and speaking to ad clubs throughout the country. Marian served on the ANA Television Committee and was the first female to chair their annual workshop in New York City in 1981. She served as president and chairman of Broadcast Pioneers in the 90s. At the age of 52, Marian established DMS Communications, Inc. This proved to be very successful and allowed Marian the desired flexibility of working from home, traveling to clients as needed. This venture continued with longtime clients Hershey Chocolate Company, ExxonMobil, and the Media School, until Marian retired at the age of 80 years. Today, Marian enjoys spending time with her family. Please welcome Marian Lockett Egan into the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame.
Well, I've timed how long I'm going to speak, so it's not going to be too long, but it's not going to be super short either. I feel so honored to be receiving this award, and coming after my retirement makes it extra special. So a huge thank you to Broadcast Pioneers, the board, and also to all of you attending this event and supporting Broadcast Pioneers. I also want to thank my family for making this event even more special. At my table, all 5 of my children, the older 3 coming from California, Colorado, and Georgia, and the 2 who stayed Pennsylvanians. My career began at 30. It wasn't planned. Divorced with 4 children and starting a new life, a phone call from the local radio station offering me a job as traffic manager bookkeeper was the start. I jumped at it and I loved it. But after a time, feeling a need to move on, I made a trip to Nashville, which was the utopia of large cities for me at the time. An interview with the media director at the largest ad agency in Nashville was encouraging. I don't remember what she said, but I do know I was inspired. I came back to Murray, Kentucky, and I quit my job, went to college for 1 semester. It was all I could afford. And I went back at midterm for a follow-up call. I went home with a job waiting at the end of the semester. That lady, Jane Grams, who has been my lifelong mentor and friend, is here tonight from Sedona. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of my career. You've heard many of them on the tape, and there's no time. But I would like to share with you a few things that women who pioneered in the 60s and 70s experienced. Not many achieved or aspired to an executive level. The climb wasn't easy. You had to work twice as hard, be willing to take risk, and be able to take rejection. Not an easy thing for a woman. If you had a family as I did, you had to juggle family and job and have family support. An experience that I remember with a chuckle I'd like to share. Jerry Lee 101 FM was hosting a cocktail party for all the people at Lewis and Gilman who worked on Tasty Baking. And since I was a part of that team, I was invited and went. Well, as it so happened, I was the only female out of a group of 30 men. And my boss, who was a traditionalist, said, "Are you uncomfortable being here?" My answer, "No, I belong." And not least in my experiences in that time, I was pregnant with my 5th child, Stephen. And when I told my boss I wanted to continue working, but I'd keep a low profile in the last months, I wasn't prepared for all the reps who lined up to take me to lunch in the later weeks and later days and up to 10 days before my son was born. I was still working, and I worked from home during the 6-week unpaid maternity leave. I became active in the Philadelphia Ad Club, and not surprising, I was asked to be secretary. And historically, the secretary stayed on and on and on. But after 3 years, I announced I would no longer be secretary. And to their credit, they created a second vice president job that year for me, and 2 years later, I was the first female president of that club. An example of taking a risk and risking rejection. In 1972, I was recruited by Scott Paper, and I moved over to the client side as advertising media manager. That was the only time being a woman gave me an edge. They wanted to promote that they were advancing women. So in addition to my primary work, they groomed me to go on the road, onto the local television shows, and speaking to ad clubs. Much as an author selling a book, but I was selling Scott Paper Company and the company image. Well, that's just a few examples. It's all changed now. And I am so happy to say that women are visible in all of the meetings, more than just visible. Many times in the later years that I worked, they would be a majority in a meeting. They are visible and they're involved and they're on the boards and they're in the executive suites. But I came up in a very exciting time in communications and in the advancement of women. Thank you.